Hello everyone, it's just a video as we're starting to release new products. We are creating a whole range of what I refer to as modular harnesses for the JZ and the UZ families. To start off with, we are going to be creating 3 for the first bit. This is the first one we've actually built an example of, just to show you guys. This is a IS200 plug and play JZ modular harness. So this would work effectively with any of the JZ engines. In terms of the IS200 part, obviously it's completely plug and play. It just plugs straight into the ECU box. This little device here effectively allows you to change to whatever ECU that you want. This is exactly the right thickness to fit inside the cavity here where the ECU used to live. And for your larger ECUs, it'll have to sit up like that. For your small ECUs like ECU Master, they'll actually fit inside here, and this will actually go on top of them. It's got super seal plugs on, so you can just, if you ever want to change your ECU, you can just change this little tiny sort of harness that goes from here to your ECU, and the rest can all stay as it is. All the pins for your IS200 standard 22 and 28 pin plug are all accounted for inside this little box here. Okay, and so the harness is obviously built all brand new, comes around to here, and we have all these various sub harnesses that go off, and I'm going to go through with them one by one. Now these obviously normally shoot through the gaps in between here because they have things like your this is the IS200 one will have a gearbox harness section, and there's your starter plug and so on and so forth. So the idea is that the only connectors that are actually added to the harness are what I would refer to as the permanent ones. So for instance, you've got your cam sensor down here. So even if it's a non-VVTi where you'd have your cam sensor in the middle and the cam sensor there, this will work. It's got the oil control valve for the VVTi solenoid. Again, not something that can be moved or changed or swapped around for something else. Coming down to here, we decided to stick with the alternator plug because this is pretty much what all of the newer engines come with, the oval style one, and the crank sensor fitting over here. And the coolant temp obviously is on a sub harness, just in case you guys want to change the coolant temp sensor for a Bosch one, or whichever one works with the particular ECU that you want to use. Okay, so to go through all the sub harnesses, basically we have your injector sub harness, you have what I'm referring to your expansion plug harness, and we'll go through all the options that are available here. We've got your ignition sub harness, and that comes with its own earthing cable, so that gets earthed permanently on there. Then coming down to the front, we've got your knock sub harness. All right, we've got your oil sub harness, and I've got what I've called the throttle sub harness, and we'll go through what those variations are and how they work. Okay, so to come back to exactly what you've got, so this is what essentially the options are when you're looking at a sub harness. So in terms of the injectors, you can either have Denso, so that would be these style of plugs. These are what we call the top key injector, okay, or high impedance injectors. From there, you can have EV1, which is like the Bosch style one, okay, which takes, I haven't got one over here for now, okay, and then you've got the EV614, or sometimes called the U-SCAR, so 10, 50, etc. They all use these ones over here, all right. And then looking at the ignition, the one we've done so far is we've got the Denso, which is basically what you'll see here. So these are like the Yaris coils that the guys use over there, all right. We're also creating ones for the Audi VW, so there's an example over here. So you've got your Audi, Audi R8, red coil over there. Then we've also done plans for the Nissan R35 because they're quite a popular coil. Okay. Now looking at the expansion, what we've put into the expansion is we put 6 wires for a Bosch LSU 4.9. The reason we've done that is because if you take a look at, for instance, the ECU Master Black or the Link Fury, they obviously have the wideband lambda built into the ECU, so you actually wire all the individual wires directly to the ECU. We've built allocation for fuel pressure sensor, fuel temperature, Mach boost valve, and if you're not using the Bosch LSU 4.9, so let's say you've got a Link Extreme or Haltech 2500, what we've done is we've twisted 2 of these wires together, 2 of the 6 wires together to allow for CAN bus wiring. So in other words, you can either have a Bosch LSU 4.9 dedicated built into the ECU, or you can have CAN bus wiring. Obviously you can't have both at the same time. We haven't allocated those many wires. Now the knock harness, basically what we've done is, if guys want to start out with a single wire standard knock sensors, so we've got a sub harness for that. Then we also got a sub harness for the Bosch wideband, so that's like these ones over here. All right, so we supply these with the studs and the nuts and everything ready to go for you as well. And so we'll apply a sub harness that basically clips into that in whichever setup you want. Then for the oil, the reason we've done a sub harness for the oil is so you can fit oil temp, oil pressure, or obviously a combined oil temp and oil pressure sensor, plus an oil switch. So if you still want to have a light, you can actually have all three of them at the same time, no problem. Now, for the throttle, we've allocated enough wires to do the standard JZ, VVTi, and in JZX100, which is non-drive-by-wire, and the drive-by-wire throttle. So in here we've got drive-by-wire cables, we've got 2 pedal sensors, 2 throttle sensors, we've got the clutch power and negative in here as well, and we've actually built in the IAT into here as well, because there's obviously a signal ground already for the crank, for the pedal and throttle position sensors. So that's all built into there. So that would come down through here, then the wiring would come up through the bottom and go to the throttle, which would normally sit over here. Okay. So basically the idea is that you can run the standard throttle. If later on you want to change to an aftermarket throttle, let's say like a Bosch drive-by-wire throttle or something, no problem. You would just then change that small little sub harness, and that would then allow you to change your throttle without having to change the whole harness. Coolant temp, obviously we've done that on a thing because you can obviously retain and replace the standard one. You can also replace it with, say, a Bosch one, etc. So that's why we've put that on a sub harness as well. And only for the IS200 plug and play, we're doing the gearbox because we know what wires are required for the speed sensor and the reverse light. So the reason we've put on a sub harness and not just made it for a J160 is because obviously there's 2. You can have an R154 or you can have a J160. Now they do both take the same connectors. The problem is the wiring is slightly different in terms of how long it is. So I've had to put it on a sub harness so that we can change it around. On the other JZ modular harness that we're going to build for just coming into the vehicle, so let's say for like a BMW E36, Volvo, whatever you basically want, those will have Autosport firewall connectors and basically be coming along here, and then the rest of it will be very similar to this, but they'll come out and they'll go here and they'll go to a firewall connector here so they can go inside the vehicle. Okay, and that's also going to apply for the 1UZ non-VVTi. We're going to be doing exactly the same thing. So as I build those, I'll do another video sort of explaining exactly how they work. But just the reason that we've done this, and I've been working on this for a few months now, is because guys keep on wanting to change things on their harness. So effectively what this does is you buy this base harness as you see here, okay, just this section over here with all your plugs ready to go, and effectively you would just tick and choose what options you want. So do you want Denso injector plugs, i.e. the standard ones? Do you want ones that use the U-Scar? Do you want ones that use the EV4, EV1 plug like the Bosch style ones, etc.? So all effectively you would do is you'd have this plug over here, you'd plug in your little sub harness, plug in all of your injectors, go from there. 6 months down the line, you get a bigger turbo, your injectors are too small, you want to change your injectors, no problem. You just phone us up, we'll make you another harness and change the plugs over to maybe this U-Scar style, maybe the EV1, whichever one you want. Boom, and you unplug your old one and you plug in your new one. Same thing with the coil. So I've got this plugged in to show you. So it's just a DTM plug like that. Then it goes to all of your coils. Dum, dum, dum. And the nice thing as well is that obviously, let's say you wanted to change your spark plugs, you just unplug this and there you go. Now your whole entire coil harness section is completely separated. You can pull out all your coils without taking any of these plugs off, which are obviously is a nice way of doing it. You just pull it all off. Same thing with that. If you want to take obviously, you know, the engine harness off, you don't need to, you know, go the whole 9 yards and unplug every single sensor. Yes, there are a few, you know, at the VVTi, the crank, the cam, etc. There are a few that you will take off, but all of these will just unplug, and then you can pull the whole engine harness off, leave all your injectors plugged in, your coils plugged in, your throttle plugged in, etc., etc., and you can take the whole engine harness off. Okay. On the other JZ modular ones that we're going to use for the firewall connector, the reason we've done the firewall connector is again the very simple process of if you wanted to change your ECU or upgrade that on the line, you don't have to buy the whole main harness again. Obviously you just buy the interior section and that changes around. That one will also come with its own fuse box. The fuse box will be built to hold pretty much every option that we offer. So you don't need to change the fuse box. So again, if you start off on say ECU Master Black, a year down the line, you want to now change to a Link ECU. You don't have to buy a whole new harness again. You literally just buy the interior section and that'll then change it over from a Link. You plug it back into your existing fuse box. Everything is fine and done. Okay. So like I said, I've been working on it for a few months now. We've got a few examples built up here so we can actually show you what we mean. I think it's much easier if I can visually show you what I mean and obviously explain to you exactly how it works. So again, this is the first one that we've done. So this is now for an IS200 plug and play. So obviously that goes there. Now, this little box is actually designed, the pinouts in here are effectively designed for a 1GFE, so IS200, a JZX 110, so this box can actually be used for a JZX 110. So if you wanted to upgrade maybe to an aftermarket ECU on a JZX 110, technically this box will work. All we have to do is change the body plugs for you, which we can do on request. It also works with the 2JZ GT VVTi. So if you had an Aristo that you wanted to change over, again, no problem, we can use this one because we can just take the 2 standard plugs in the Aristo and we can plug them directly into here, and we have all the correct pins on this side over here to go to the ECU. Very simple and basic harness. A couple of these connectors go on the outside here, at the back over here, so that'll get out of the way. You've got your ground over here, which you can take to the inlet manifold down here, and that means that stays in place. Just runs along here, over the top, there it is. That's pretty much nice and simple. These will push through the sort of cavities in your inlet manifold, and they'll go down underneath, which will then obviously make everything sort of dangle around here rather than being on top, so it's not actually on show. And then obviously you're going to go to things like your NOx sensors down there, and you've got your oil pressure over here, and so on and so forth. So there'll be short little harnesses there, and that's purely just so that you can always upgrade down the line, because everything is connected up here. So everything I've gone through there, like oil pressure, oil temperature, fuel pressure, fuel temp, all of that is connected into here. So even if you don't use it and you want to upgrade later, it's just simply a case of purchasing a small one. So for example, here's an expansion harness over here. So we've got a Bosch LSU 4.9. We've got a fuel pressure sensor over here, which again, we're supplying with the sensor as well. And we've got a Mac boost valve. So we're just waiting to put the connector on for that. But that gives you an idea. Nice and simple. You just plug that into the expansion harness. Get it the right way. And there you go. Job done. Now you've got your wideband hooked up at the back here. You've got your fuel pressure hooked up. So if it's going to go here on the firewall where you've got your fuel pressure regulator, or into the rail if you want to put it there. And then you've got your Mac boost valve, so your Mac boost valve can live on the firewall over here. Okay. So again, super nice and easy. Once those items are mounted, you can just unplug that. And let's say, for instance, you start off and you just want a Bosch wideband, and later on you want a fuel pressure sensor. No problem, phone us up. We'll just build one with a fuel pressure sensor in, and vice versa. If you want to add in like a fuel pressure and a Mac boost valve because you're upgrading. So the idea is you can start small and you can build yourself up from there. So again, the expansion harness you don't even really need, you know, if you want to start off very basic. You don't need this expansion harness because you don't technically, I mean, obviously I would advise having a Bosch LSU 4.9, so that would always be my advice, but I'm saying technically you don't have to if you don't want to. You can start basically with, we'll look at designing these as well for the standard 3 coils. So you can even start with that and use this plug over here. Then you can upgrade to, say, Yaris coils if you want. You can upgrade to Audi R8 coils. Again, really nice and simple. You don't have to buy a whole new harness. You just phone us up, say, guys, I want to change over to Denso coils. Please can you sell me a JZ modular harness, a sub harness for the Denso coils? No problem. We quickly make it up, all done and dusted. These sub harnesses can be obviously customized for you as well. So again, something that's not super set in stone. Basically, we'd have an option sheet like this that you can tick and go through and tell us exactly what you want from each one. And so if you've got like an aftermarket drive-by-wire, you could say, I've got, you know, this Bosch part number, etc., etc. We'll then build all the connectors on there. Then we can ask you sort of what is the length going to be. So you can actually buy the base harness, fit it onto the engine, get all of your things fitted on, like your throttle, like your injectors or whatever. So injectors are pretty common where they're going to be. They're going to kind of stay where they are, so it's not really a major issue. Same with the coils. I mean, you're not going to change where the spark plug locations are and so on. But stuff like the throttle, you may change because you've got a different, you know, intake plenum. Things like the oil, you might decide that you want to fit like a sandwich plate on, which obviously brings it right close to the block, etc. Okay, so you can let us know these things, and we can obviously custom make these little sub harnesses to your requirements. We have them all drawn up. All you got to do is give us measurements. We'll change it around. We get it done, and we'll get them out done quickly. But the idea is that hopefully, provided that, you know, there's lots of interest and these start selling, we'll hopefully have these base harnesses on the shelf ready to go. so there'll be no waiting for those. That's another bonus of it. We'll have most of these on there, and what we'll try and do is we'll try and keep the most popular sub harnesses, again, items on the shelf that you guys can then just phone up and buy. And we'll try and get everything online, but we're so fully booked up. I just don't get time to actually get and do all this admin stuff, so that's fine. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully this gives you a good idea. Hopefully you guys find it useful. Let me know. You know, I've gone through everything that I've thought of, you know, over the years of building these harnesses. I've kind of gone through and thought of everything possibly that you guys could want as an extra. You know, things like oil pressure, oil temperature, fuel pressure, fuel temperature, Mac boost valve, Bosch LSU. Also building in the ability to run CAN if you don't have, if you don't have like a Link Fury or an ECU master, so you no longer have the ability to wire a lambda sensor directly to that. Okay, and then obviously the next one that's going to come up is going to be also for a JZ, but it's going to be running these firewall connectors, so that'll then bring these into different sections over there. Now that we've built these, we're just going to double check over everything, so we should have prices for things like these main harness and these certain sub harnesses that we've done here, you know, like Denso injectors, EV614 injectors, Audi coils, Denso coils, the NOx sensors we've already done up because we know where the locations are. So again, we should have the prices and everything ready for those if you want. Throttle, at this point in time, we have drawn up a base diagram to work with, but obviously what we'll do is we'll then get you guys to help us out with measurements so we can custom make it to fit your one, because we've noticed that there's so many different types of intakes. So what we'll do is we'll just draw these up custom. You guys can give us the measurements. You can say, you know, if it's a Bosch one, it's obviously only got one plug on it, so nice and simple. And then obviously you'll have effectively like the pedal and stuff coming off of that. But that's all good, and you see that's where it's nice as well, because things like if you don't have the Bosch, obviously we're using 2 wires for CAN, but we've got the other 4 wires, and we've got sensor, ground, and 5, so we can actually build like an accelerator pedal out of here as well, depending on your setup, if you know what I mean. So if you're trying to use a Bosch throttle body, and so you need to actually fit a pedal in the car, we can then utilize some of these wires in here to actually wire up a pedal, because we only need 4 wires technically for a pedal, so we can use 2 for the CAN and the other 4 for the pedal. All right, so nice and simple, hopefully very, very easy to work with. We do have the ability to add you know, wires coming in from here as well, so we can add extra outputs and so on and so forth into here, and vice versa. We've got some extra ones in here, etc., and we do actually have some extra ones in there that we can use. So yeah, so again, I know I'm repeating myself, but yeah, I just wanted to be able to show you guys on a video exactly how it works. Do please, if you guys have any feedback, let me know. If there's anything you can think of, if there's any sensors that I haven't included in here that you guys think would be incredibly useful to have. So bearing in mind, obviously, that, you know, the chances of someone having a fuel pressure and a temp and so on and so forth. Let's say you want flex fuel. Again, we can add those in there as well. So again, it's, you know, there are 12 wires in here. There are quite a lot of wires that we can obviously repurpose for certain things, etc. as well. Okay, but again, any sensors you can think of that we haven't included that you guys might want in there, please let me know. Comment on the video, go to our Facebook page, send us a message, and then what we'll do is we'll look through those, and if there are any extra sensors that you guys can think of that might be useful to add in, I'd rather than redo these plugs and add them in, because I want to kind of make like a one thing that we can bulk build and keep on the shelf for you guys. All right, so I know it's been a long video. It was like 19 minutes long, so hopefully you guys have stayed till the very end. I'll include some pictures of obviously the build process of all of this, so you guys can see what's underneath all this heat shrink, etc. But yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully if you guys have any questions, you'll let us know, and any suggestions, please let us know. Thank you very much. Bye bye.